Today we're going to be installing an oil cooler setup on the NC Miata track car. This car has been fantastic with all the modification that we've done to it. It's been extremely reliable and allowing us to get a lot of seat time on the track without really any issues whatsoever. It's also been setting much quicker lap times now that the suspension's all sorted. We have good tires on it, so pretty much everything to this car that is necessary has been done, and it's been very stable, very neutral in handling, and just really nice to drive on a track overall. That said, the one problem that I've been having consistently is that the oil temps get far too high. About 15 minutes or so into a session, the oil gets too hot and I have to come off the track, so it's really limiting the amount of usage that I can get out of the car on a track day. So this oil cooler setup should hopefully be alleviating that. So the actual hardware that we're going to be working with is the Mad Fabworks oil filter housing. This is going to give us a thermostatic plate that allows us to send oil to and receive oil back from the oil cooler, which is going to be a Mishimoto cooler. It's just a simple heat exchanger, which we're going to be mounting using some aluminum channels. There is a tutorial done on this from the website that I bought all of this from. I'll link that in the description as well as the links to the products here. But we're going to go ahead and start getting all this on the car. So we've got the car up on jack stands with the wheels underneath it for extra safety. First thing I've done is went ahead and removed this cover plate underneath. This is the plate that sits right in this hole here. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us better visibility to the filter housing. The other place that you can see the filter housing from is right through this kind of side of the front driver's side wheel. You can see the filter back in there. Those bolts are going to be accessible from here, and we're going to be able to get the rest of it out from the bottom where I've removed that plate. This is the first thing I'm going to tackle because it is the most difficult thing. Once this is done, we have the Mad Fabworks filter housing on. It's all going to be pretty easy from there. I just drained the oil out of the car and put the drain plug back in and torqued down to spec. The reason I've done this, one is to just change the oil while I'm doing this, but two is to make sure we have no oil in the pan so that when we take the filter housing off, no oil wants to leak out of the engine. That shouldn't happen because the filter housing is attached to the block rather than the pan, but just to be safe, I don't want to deal with it, and this should hopefully keep things a little bit cleaner. I'm now pulling apart the old oil filter housing to try and get it off. This is the sensor that I was running in the factory oil pressure switch. This is from Rotarytronics. That gives me an oil temperature and pressure. That's been pulled out, and now I'll kind of show you what I'm dealing with. I did most of this from underneath of the car, but you can now see there's the oil filter, and then that is the filter housing. You can see what it's connected to there. It's a little bit deep in there. Let me see if I can try and get better light on it. Okay, so there it is. That is the oil filter housing. You can see those 4 bolts holding it on. I'm going to try and get those off now, get this filter housing removed, and then we can get the Mad Fabworks one on, and then everything else should be easier from there. I just got the filter housing off. We can see the side of the engine block now, and then down here you can see that entire housing just comes off. There's a gasket on the back of it as well. It is a major pain to get to. Getting to it from this side is by far the easiest, and I had to use a ton of extensions and swivels. So yeah, very difficult, but it's off. So now let's take a look at the Mad Fabworks unit. This here is the Mad Fabworks unit. You can see they have it engraved on the side. Basically, this just goes right onto the block where we took the old one off. There's where the oil filter goes on. There's our inlet and outlets for our oil cooler. Here is our sensor port for the sensor we pulled off. And then actually, if you want to run a sensor there and a sensor on this side, you can do that too. But I'm not going to be doing that. I'm actually going to be plugging them. So I'm going to head inside right now, get the sensor installed right here, get the plugs installed, and then we can go ahead and throw this on the car. After putting the new filter housing all together, I'm now finished with the hardest part of this entire project, which was getting it back on there. You can see the new one is up and in there. I've installed it and torqued it down to the engine block. I've got a new filter on there. We have the sensor all back hooked up with the wiring all routed nicely. And yeah, now that that's done, we're gonna have to put the heat exchanger somewhere in the nose of the car and then run the 2 lines back to that. And then that should be all there is to it. So now I'm gonna work on getting the front bumper off, and then we can start working on creating some mounts for this heat exchanger. Now out here the next day, I have the under tray off of the car now, and with all of that taken off of it, I can now actually start doing the oil cooler. I'm going to start making a mount for the heat exchanger first. We'll get that all bolted up, we'll run our lines back, and then we'll button everything back together. So now a little bit later, I have fabricated a mount right here that's going to be holding our exchanger up. I have just roughly kind of figured out where everything should go, and now that it's kind of all in place, we're going to get all this tightened down and then we can worry about running the lines. Now a little bit later, I've made this flat brace that runs back to the frame there. That just keeps the exchanger nice and sturdy. It's not going to want to wiggle around at all. Then I've run these 2 lines back down to the oil filter perch we did. I've zip tied them to that radiator outlet hose right there. That keeps them off of the sway bar. They run around the steering linkage and then into the filter housing. So now that's all pretty much hooked up. I think I'm gonna put the car on the ground with everything still off, run it, make sure there's no leaks, make sure everything's okay, and then we'll button it back up and be finished. Now that everything was together, I went ahead, threw the entire car back together, and all that was left at this point was just to purge the oil system of any air. I just did that by holding down the throttle while trying to start the car. That just makes the oil pump move some oil through without actually starting the engine. At which point I then started the engine, let it drop down a little bit and level as the oil filled the filter, the cooler lines, and the cooler. And yeah, basically just topped it back off from there. And you can see through here, the oil cooler in there. And you can see the custom mount. You can see the lines coming off of it. I don't see any leaks there. So I think this is gonna be good, and it's gonna be exactly what we needed for the track. In my initial testing, the oil temps are reading about 30 to 35 degrees lower than they usually do for highway driving. So from what I can tell so far, this is working really well. I'm actually going to be taking the car out to the track again this upcoming weekend to see how it does there. And there's going to be a video coming out on that as well. So other than that, thanks for watching and have a good day.